The sun peeked through the windows of Indianapolis Children's Home as a small boy sat quietly in the corner of the playroom. His dark eyes focused intensely on a Rubik's Cube, tiny fingers moving with surprising speed and purpose. At just 6 years old, he had already learned that being different meant waiting longer for a forever home. "Look at that little genius go," whispered Ms. Rodriguez, one of the care workers, to her colleague. She'd been watching him solve increasingly difficult puzzles over the past few months. While other kids his age struggled with simple shape sorters, he was completing 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles and teaching himself to read chapter books. Every Tuesday and Thursday, when potential parents visited, the boy would straighten his shirt and practice his brightest smile in the mirror. He'd learned to expect the same pattern. The adults would smile politely, sometimes ruffle his hair, but their eyes would always drift to other children. Some would whisper about cultural fit or similar backgrounds. Others simply avoided eye contact altogether. The rejections hurt, but he found comfort in his books and puzzles. The numbers and patterns made sense in a way people sometimes didn't. During quiet time, while other kids napped, he'd sneak his favorite astronomy book under his blanket. The care workers pretended not to notice. They understood this was his way of coping. One particularly tough day, after watching a baby get adopted, he asked Ms. Rodriguez, "What's wrong with me?" Her heart broke as she pulled him close. "Nothing's wrong with you, sweetheart. You're perfect just the way you are. Sometimes people are scared of what they don't understand, but the right family will see how amazing you are." The boy had a special corner in the playroom where he'd set up his laboratory, really just a collection of old electronics, math workbooks, and science magazines donated by library. He'd spend hours there, taking things apart and putting them back together, solving equations meant for kids twice his age. The staff began noticing how he'd help younger kids with their homework, explaining complex ideas in ways that made perfect sense to them. Despite his young age, he showed remarkable emotional intelligence too. When new kids arrived at the home, scared and confused, he was often the first to share his toys or offer a friendly word. "Everyone feels lost sometimes," he'd say, sharing pieces of his puzzle with them. "But we can figure it out together." As months turned into years, the boy remained hopeful. Each night, he'd look out his window at the stars, remembering what he'd learned from his astronomy book, that even the darkest night sky holds countless bright possibilities. He didn't know it yet, but his greatest adventure was just about to begin. Ms. Rodriguez kept detailed notes about his progress, hoping to find parents who would nurture both his brilliant mind and gentle spirit. "This child isn't just gifted," she wrote in her reports. "He has the potential to change lives." She knew somewhere out there was a family ready to look past skin color and see the extraordinary soul within. The other kids called him Professor because he always had an answer for everything. But behind his scholarly demeanor was just a little boy who wanted what every child deserves, a family to call his own, a place where his uniqueness would be celebrated rather than overlooked. As spring turned to summer and the afternoon sun cast long shadows in the playroom, he continued waiting, solving puzzles, and dreaming of the day someone would choose him not despite his differences, but because of them. The white SUV pulled into the children's home parking lot on a crisp autumn morning. Inside, a couple sat quietly, holding hands. 5 years of trying for a baby, countless doctor visits, and 3 failed fertility treatments had led them to this moment. The wife, a high school science teacher, squeezed her husband's hand. The husband, who worked as an engineering consultant, gave her a reassuring smile. "Ready?" he asked, his voice gentle. She nodded, though her heart was racing. They'd spent months preparing for this day, reading books about adoption, attending workshops, and getting their home ready. But nothing could fully prepare them for the emotion of this moment. Inside, the cheerful walls were covered with children's artwork. The couple noticed a particularly detailed drawing of the solar system, surprisingly accurate for what seemed to be a child's work. As they waited in the meeting room, they could hear laughter from the playroom down the hall. The social worker arrived with a warm smile and a thick folder of profiles. "Tell me what you're looking for in a child," she said, settling into her chair. The couple exchanged glances. They'd discussed this countless times at home. "We just want to give a child love," the wife said simply. "Age, race, background, none of that matters to us." The social worker's smile widened slightly. She'd heard similar words before, but something in their tone felt genuine. As she began showing them profiles, she noticed how they took time with each one, asking thoughtful questions about the children's interests and needs rather than just their surface details. Then they heard it, a child's voice from the next room, patiently explaining something. "City, when you connect these wires like this, the light bulb turns on because of electrical current. It's like a river of tiny particles flowing through the metal." The couple paused, intrigued by the clear, articulate explanation coming from what sounded like a very young voice. The wife, being a science teacher, was particularly impressed by the accurate yet simple explanation. "Who was that?" the husband asked, noticing how the social worker's eyes lit up at his question. She led them to the playroom door, where they saw a small boy surrounded by younger children, demonstrating a simple circuit board experiment. His eyes shone with excitement as he helped another child successfully light up their bulb. The couple watched, amazed, as this young boy turned complex concepts into simple, understandable ideas. But what caught their attention even more was his patience, his gentle encouragement when others struggled, and the way he celebrated each child's success as if it were his own. The wife felt tears welling up in her eyes. In all their preparations and expectations, they'd never imagined this moment would unfold this way. The boy looked up, noticing them at the door. Instead of shying away, he gave them a warm smile and held up his circuit board. "Would you like to learn about electricity too?" he asked. The husband knelt down to the boy's level, genuinely interested. "I'd love to," he said, his engineering background making him curious about the child's understanding. For the next 20 minutes they sat there, the boy explaining his project with remarkable clarity while the wife watched, her teacher's heart recognizing a natural educator in the making. They learned he loved astronomy, could solve complex math problems in his head, and spent his free time teaching other kids. But more importantly, they saw his kindness, his resilience, and his hope. When he talked about the stars, his eyes lit up with the same wonder they'd seen in the detailed solar system drawn in the hallway. The social worker watched quietly, seeing something special unfold. This couple wasn't seeing skin color or differences. They were seeing a bright, beautiful soul who needed a home. As the boy showed them his collection of science books, carefully explaining his favorite parts, the couple shared a look that said everything without words. That evening, driving home, they sat in silence for a while, both processing the day. Finally, the wife spoke. "Did you feel it? That connection?" Her husband nodded, his eyes misty. "He's our son," he said simply. "He's been our son all along. We just hadn't met him yet." They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be paperwork, home studies, and challenges they couldn't yet imagine. But in their hearts, they'd already begun to build a family, one based not on matching appearances, but on shared curiosity, understanding, and love. The real challenges began the moment the couple announced their decision to adopt. Their quiet suburban neighborhood buzzed with whispered conversations. At family gatherings, uncomfortable silences filled the room when they spoke about their plans. The husband's mother pulled him aside one evening, her voice filled with concern. "Have you really thought this through?" she asked, wringing her hands. "It's not just about love. There are complications." They'd expected some resistance, but the reality hit harder than anticipated. The wife found herself defending their choice during lunch breaks at school. "But what about cultural differences?" one colleague asked. "How will you handle that?" Another teacher, older and more direct, warned, "Kids can be cruel. Are you prepared for the challenges he'll face?" The husband faced his own battles at work. During a coffee break, a senior colleague cornered him. "Listen," he said, trying to sound helpful, "I know you mean well, but raising a child who looks different, it might affect your career advancement." The husband stood straighter, his voice firm but calm. "Then perhaps it's time for change in our industry too." But these external pressures were nothing compared to the adoption system itself. The caseworker, though supportive, had to be thorough. Extra home studies were scheduled. Additional references were required. Each question seemed to carry extra weight because of their different backgrounds. They threw themselves into preparation. Weekends became filled with cultural education classes. They reached out to local community groups, building connections with Black families who could offer guidance and support. The wife joined online forums for transracial adoptive parents, absorbing stories, advice, and wisdom from those who'd walked this path before. Their determination grew stronger with each obstacle. One evening, after another lengthy home study, the husband found his wife in their home office, surrounded by books about racial identity and child development. "Sometimes I wonder if we're doing enough," she whispered. He sat beside her, taking her hand. "We're not just preparing to be parents," he replied. "We're preparing to be better humans." The turning point came during a required adoption workshop. As they shared their story, an older black couple approached them afterward. The woman hugged the wife tightly. "20 years ago, a white family adopted our nephew," she said. "They loved him, learned with him, and fought for him. Today, he's a doctor, strong in both his identity and his family bonds. It's not about color, it's about commitment." Those words became their anchor through the following months of paperwork, interviews, and scrutiny. They converted their home office into a bedroom, painting the walls with constellations because of the boy's love for astronomy. They found books featuring diverse characters, ordered science kits, and created space for both learning and play. The process forced them to confront their own biases and assumptions. They had deep conversations about privilege, identity, and what it truly means to be family. The wife started attending diversity and inclusion workshops at her school, bringing back insights that enriched their preparation. The husband initiated conversations about representation in his workplace, surprising himself with his growing advocacy. When questions arose about their readiness to handle racial issues, they didn't offer defensive responses. Instead, they showed their research, their connections with diverse communities, and their commitment to learning. "We know we won't have all the answers," they told the adoption board. "But we're committed to asking the right questions and seeking guidance when needed." Their sincerity began to shift perspectives. The husband's mother, after attending a cultural awareness session with them, became one of their strongest supporters. "I see now," she admitted, tears in her eyes. "Love isn't about matching outsides, it's about connecting hearts." Finally, after months of evaluation, preparation, and growth, they received the call they'd been waiting for. The approval had come through. As they held each other, crying and laughing, they realized this journey had already changed them in profound ways. They weren't just preparing to give a child a home, they were building a bridge between worlds, challenging assumptions, and opening hearts, including their own. The first few weeks at home revealed surprises that no one could have predicted. The boy's new room, decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars and filled with books, quickly transformed into a miniature laboratory. One morning, his parents woke to find him solving calculus problems he'd found in his mom's old college textbooks. He wasn't just doing the math, he was understanding it at a level that left them speechless. But brilliance came with its own challenges. During his first week of school, the principal called. They found him reading advanced physics books during math class. "He's already completed next year's curriculum," the teacher explained, both impressed and concerned. "We're not sure how to keep him engaged." At home, different challenges emerged. Some nights, they'd find him awake at 3 a.m., building complex structures with his engineering set. Other times, he'd freeze at unexpected sounds. A door slamming, a car backfiring. The trauma of his early years hadn't disappeared with a new address. His father started sitting with him during these late-night sessions. Instead of sending him back to bed, they'd work together on projects. One night, while building a miniature robot, the boy finally opened up. "In the home, I used to pretend the stars were my family," he whispered. "They never left, even when everyone else did." The parents learned to balance nurturing his extraordinary mind while healing his heart. They established routines that made him feel secure: family dinner at 6, bedtime stories at 8, even if the books he chose were about quantum physics. His mother noticed how he'd relax when they maintained these patterns, his brilliant mind finally feeling safe enough to truly soar. His achievements were remarkable. By 7, he was writing simple computer programs. By 8, he was solving engineering problems that stumped his father's colleagues. But more impressive was his emotional growth. He started helping other kids with their homework, showing the same patience his parents had shown him. However, the outside world wasn't always kind. During a science fair where he presented a project about renewable energy, a judge questioned whether he had done the work himself. His parents watched their son handle the situation with remarkable grace, calmly explaining every detail of his project until doubt turned to amazement. The mother started noticing subtle changes in her teaching style, inspired by her son's way of looking at the world. She began encouraging her high school students to explore problems from different angles, just as he did. Her classroom became a place where curiosity was celebrated as much as correct answers. His father found himself bringing his son's innovative thinking to work. During one particularly challenging project, he remembered how the boy had solved a similar problem with his toys. That approach, simplified but brilliant, ended up saving the company months of work. They faced the race question head-on when it arose. After a difficult day at school, where another child had made a hurtful comment, they had an honest family discussion. Being different isn't a weakness, his father said firmly. It's what makes you uniquely you. His mother added, and we'll always be here to support you, no matter what. The boy's response surprised them both. I know who I am, he said thoughtfully. I'm your son, I'm a scientist, and I'm going to help people who feel different, just like you helped me. His words carried a wisdom far beyond his years. One evening, as they watched him explain a complex scientific concept to his grandmother, the same woman who had initially questioned their decision, they realized something profound. This child hadn't just adapted to their family, he had transformed it. His presence had pushed them all to grow, to question their assumptions, to see the world through new eyes. The mother couldn't stop thinking about her son's words during dinner. Why don't other smart kids from the children's home get chances like me? He'd asked, pushing his peas around his plate. That question sparked something in her mind, leading to late-night research and planning sessions at the kitchen table. 3 months later, she launched an after-school program in her classroom. She started with 5 children from underprivileged backgrounds, all showing promise in science and math. Her son helped design the curriculum, remembering what had excited him most about learning. Everyone thinks differently, he explained while sketching out lesson plans. We need to let them explore their own way. The father watched his family's passion grow and felt himself changing too. During a major company meeting, when discussion turned to diversity in tech fields, he found himself standing up. He shared his son's story, not just about his brilliant mind, but about how many other gifted children might be overlooked because of prejudice or poverty. His words hit home. The company launched a mentorship program, partnering with local schools in disadvantaged areas. Soon, his office buzzed with young voices as students came for weekly coding sessions. His son often joined, helping kids just a few years younger than himself master basic programming concepts. The grandmother, who had once worried about their decision, became their biggest advocate. At her church group, she proudly shared stories about her grandson's achievements. But more importantly, she spoke about love that crossed boundaries and the joy of opening one's heart to change. Slowly, other families in their conservative community began to shift their perspectives. Weekend family gatherings transformed too. What started as simple dinners grew into community events. Their backyard became a place where children of all backgrounds came to learn and play. The boys set up science experiments on the patio, teaching other kids about chemistry through colorful reactions and safe experiments. Teachers at school noticed the change spreading through their classrooms. The boys' presence had sparked conversations about giftedness, race, and opportunity. Other students, seeing his success and confidence, began to question their own assumptions. When a new student arrived mid-year, facing similar prejudices, they welcomed him without hesitation. The mother's after-school program grew rapidly. Other teachers volunteered their time, inspired by the results they were seeing. Children who had been labeled as difficult or underperforming flourished when given the right opportunities. The boys' approach to teaching, patient, creative, and accepting of different learning styles, became a model for the entire program. His father's workplace underwent its own transformation. The mentorship program revealed a wealth of untapped talent in their community. Young people who might never have considered careers in technology were discovering their potential. The company's culture shifted, becoming more inclusive and innovative as new perspectives flowed in. But the most profound changes happened at home. Family dinner conversations evolved into deep discussions about science, society, and change. The boys' questions challenged them all to think differently. Why do we assume what people can do before giving them a chance? He'd ask, sparking hours of thoughtful dialogue. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, the mother realized something extraordinary. In trying to provide a home for one child, they had created ripples of change throughout their community. Her son's presence had transformed not just their family, but countless other lives. "Do you think we're making a difference?" the boy asked, looking up at the first stars appearing in the sky. His father smiled, remembering the scared child from the children's home who now spoke with such purpose. "We already are," he answered, "and this is just the beginning." By age 12, the boy's reputation had spread beyond their small community. His innovative educational software, designed to help children learn complex concepts through simple games, caught the attention of major tech companies. But his parents made sure he remained grounded, keeping their regular family dinners and weekend traditions intact. One morning, a prestigious science magazine requested an interview. They wanted to feature him in their Young Innovators section. The boy sat at the kitchen table, thoughtfully considering each question. When asked about his inspiration, he spoke about his days in the children's home, teaching other kids math and science. "Everyone has potential," he explained. "Sometimes they just need someone to believe in them first." The article sparked national interest. News stations wanted interviews, universities offered early admission programs, and tech companies sent internship offers. The parents watched carefully, protecting their son from overwhelming attention while supporting his dreams. "Remember," his mother would say, "your worth isn't in your achievements, but in your heart." His father noticed small but significant changes. During a tech conference where the boy was invited to speak, he didn't just talk about his achievements. Instead, he focused on the importance of giving all children access to quality education. The audience fell silent when he described how many brilliant minds might be overlooked in children's homes and underprivileged communities. At school, he started a coding club that welcomed students of all skill levels. The principal watched in amazement as students who struggled in traditional classes flourished under his patient guidance. "He doesn't just teach coding," one student explained. "He shows us how to believe in ourselves." His mother's educational program had grown into a citywide initiative inspired by her son's teaching methods. She watched proudly as he mentored younger students, using the same gentle encouragement that had helped him overcome his own early challenges. "Every child learns differently," he'd explain to new volunteer teachers. "Our job is to find what works for each one." Between public appearances and school projects, he still found time for family. Sunday afternoons were reserved for experiments in the garage, where he and his father would work on new inventions. His mother joined them, contributing ideas from her teaching experience. These quiet moments, filled with laughter and creativity, kept him anchored despite his growing fame. The boy's success opened doors for other transracial adoptive families. When interviewed about their family, his parents spoke honestly about both challenges and joys. Their story helped change perceptions and inspired more families to consider adoption across racial lines. The children's home where they first met saw a significant increase in adoptions of older children. College recruiters started visiting when he was still in middle school, but the boy had his own plans. He wanted to develop more educational programs, especially for children in foster care. "Success means nothing if we can't help others succeed too," he told his parents one evening, showing them designs for a new learning platform. His grandmother, once skeptical, now proudly shared his achievements at every opportunity. But she always emphasized one thing: his biggest gift isn't his brilliant mind, she'd say. It's his ability to see potential in everyone he meets. Despite national recognition and growing influence, he remained the same compassionate child who loved solving puzzles and helping others learn. Each night, he still looked at the stars through his bedroom window, remembering where his journey began. But now, instead of feeling alone, he was surrounded by love, support, and a burning desire to help other children find their own paths to success. At 16, the boy stood in front of the children's home where his journey began. This time, he wasn't waiting to be chosen. He was there to launch his educational technology company's first free learning center. The same playroom where he once taught simple circuits now housed state-of-the-art computers, each running the software he designed specifically for foster children. His parents watched from the back of the room as he demonstrated the program to a group of wide-eyed children. The software adapted to each child's learning style, just as his mother had done in her classroom. It taught everything from basic math to advanced programming, using games and interactive stories to make learning exciting. Every child in this room has a special gift, he told the assembled crowd of social workers, teachers, and community leaders. Sometimes that gift is hidden behind fear or hurt or simply lack of opportunity. This program isn't just about teaching, it's about showing each child their own potential. The company's mission was simple but powerful: provide free STEM education to every child in foster care across the country. He turned down multiple lucrative offers from tech giants, choosing instead to build something meaningful. His father's business expertise and mother's educational background helped shape the organization's structure, making it both sustainable and impactful. Local news covered the launch, but what caught their attention wasn't just the innovative technology. It was how the boy stopped the interview to help a young girl struggling with a math problem. Her cameras captured him kneeling beside her, patiently explaining the concept until her face lit up with understanding. The same way he'd helped others in that very room years ago. The impact rippled outward quickly. Within months, similar learning centers opened in children's homes across the state. Success stories started pouring in, children discovering their love for science, improving their grades, finding confidence in their abilities. More importantly, adoption rates began rising as potential parents saw beyond surface differences to recognize each child's unique potential. His parents' influence spread too. His mother's educational program became a model for schools nationwide, while his father's company set new standards for diversity in tech industries. Together, they conducted workshops for adoptive families, sharing their experiences and helping others navigate the challenges they'd faced. But home life remained their sanctuary. Family game nights now included complex strategy games he'd designed himself. Sunday experiments in the garage evolved into family brainstorming sessions for new educational tools. His grandmother still baked his favorite cookies, though now she shared them with a steady stream of young students who came for tutoring. The boy's dual heritage became a source of strength and inspiration. He worked with cultural organizations to ensure his educational programs reflected diverse perspectives and experiences. Understanding comes from seeing yourself in what you learn, he often said, incorporating elements from various cultures into his teaching materials. One evening, as the family sat on their porch watching the sunset, a car pulled into their driveway. A former student from the Learning Center, now headed to college on a full scholarship, wanted to thank them. "You showed me that circumstances don't define destiny," she told them, tears in her eyes. The boy, nearly a young man now, looked at his parents with deep gratitude. "We're all part of something bigger," he said softly. "Every child who feels different, every family brave enough to look past differences, every person willing to give someone a chance, we're all connected." Their story inspired hundreds of transracial adoptions and led to significant changes in the adoption system. But their greatest legacy wasn't in the programs they built or the policies they changed. It was in the simple truth they lived every day, that love knows no boundaries, that potential can be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes the biggest dreams come true in ways we never imagined.